Yo, what is up everybody, it's Jay the Great here and welcome back to another Naruto reaction video here today. And today we have a very peculiar topic by the Great Six, and as you can tell by the title, this is Jiraiya versus Kakuzu isn't a fair fight. So folks, it is clear that Kakuzu gets this sort of notoriety within the Naruto fandom, right, due to trolls, due to ignorance, and due to the entertainment factor that seems to come when you speak of Kakuzu and his raw durability. So today, Six will be discussing Jiraiya versus Kakuzu, which from my own perspective isn't even close, and clearly Jiraiya is superior to Rasen Shuriken Naruto, and Rasen Shuriken Naruto blitzed Kakuzu and killed him, right? So this matchup isn't really even close, as indicated by the title itself, and I'm sure Six made this video to entertain the whole Kakuzu gag that we've had in this community for quite some time. And either way, I am intrigued to see what Six has to say about this one, because who knows, maybe Six will say some things that I don't expect, etc. But either way, let's see what Six has to say about this one. But before we begin, anyone greatly appreciate it. Hit that like button, turn on bell notifications to stay updated with yours truly. And if you enjoy, man, you mess with the kid, make sure to hit that sub button, because once you do, become part of the family forever. Let's not waste any more time, screen. Let's see what Six says about this one.
Jiraiya, one of the three legendary signing in the Toad Sage versus Kakuzu, the 90-year-old Jinchuriki hunter and a notorious mercenary. Does Pervy Sage really have what it takes to win? I'm just gonna spoil this now. The clear answer is yes. I often get a lot of questions from you guys about how Jiraiya and the other signings compare to some of the weaker Akatsuki members like Kakuzu. So in this video, I'll be going over why Jiraiya, even in base, would destroy Kakuzu. If you've been in the fandom for a while, then you should know it's become fairly common to see people exaggerate how strong characters like Kakuzu are, and on the flip side, there are people who completely exaggerate how weak Kakuzu is, and it's completely ridiculous. For this, I'll be primarily sticking to the manga and data books, but I'll make sure to include some stuff from other materials where it's relevant. I'd also like to ask you to leave a like on the video and subscribe just to help the channel out. With that being said, let's get started by going over just how strong Kakuzu and Jiraiya both are and compare how they and their arsenals would do in a fight. So like I said before, you'll often see a lot of people exaggerate Kakuzu's minimal showings to exaggerate how strong he was. So the best place to start here would be by debunking this sadly common misconception that Kakuzu, despite losing to Naruto with a small QB imp before he even trained to learn Sage Mode, is secretly way faster than Minato and KCM1 Naruto and the strongest man in the Akatsuki. It's ridiculous. And that Kishimoto, instead of, telling us as much or keeping him around in the long term to show us this, decided to convey this instead through one or two vague showings. No, but really though, it's really incredibly dishonest, but you'll see a lot of people try to say that because Kakuzu reacted to Yugito's paw before he got trampled during their fight, that this somehow leads to the conclusion he's faster than KCM1 Naruto, who's getting pressed by Obito's enhanced Edo Jinchuriki during the war arc. For one, while Kakuzu did manage to react to the slowest form of Yugito, this in no way proves he'd be able to do the same to base or V2 Yugito when she was alive. On top of this, unlike regular Edo Tensei Shinobi, the Edo Jinchuriki are said to have become much faster and stronger than they were when they were alive, due to Obito outfitting all of them with Sharingan and Rinnegan vision, while also controlling their moves. This shouldn't come as a surprise. It's a good observation. But since the Sharingan by itself has been said to provide an overall boost to the user's combat ability due to its kinetic vision many times over, you'll sometimes hear people say it only provides a boost to the user's perception and reaction speed due to the way the kinetic vision is described. However, we're told by sources like the manga and the first data book that Sharingan users still move and attack faster with kinetic vision than without it. So as you can see, there are many reasons why the Kakuzu wank just doesn't work. And as I said before, it should be obvious how dishonest it is to say Kakuzu was some secret Obito slayer that just got defeated by 4 Jonin level ninja through teamwork and trickery. Like, we didn't see Konoha team up and fail to cheese Pain in the very next arc. With that all out of the way, we begin to talk about how strong Kakuzu really is. So all jokes aside, Kakuzu, like the other Akatsuki members, was a pretty prominent and imposing villain when he was first introduced to the series.
Yeah, of course.
And while things like having fought Hashirama once and being able to use all 5 changes in chakra nature aren't a big deal now, those accolades were almost unheard of when we were first introduced to Kakuzu.
Oh yeah, of
It
course.
should also be noted that it is true all of his opponents needed to team up and work together in order to defeat him. However, his feasible showings against people like Kakashi also often get exaggerated quite a bit. For one, a lot of people seem to think Kakuzu was clearly superior to the Kakashi he fought in nearly every way. However, outside of combat skill, this just simply isn't true. You'll often see people use Kakuzu's kick on Kakashi while he was in the middle of attacking Hidan to say he was fast enough to speed blitz him. However, Kakashi was clearly just caught by surprise here, and it's important to note that while the lightning blade does greatly increase Kakashi's movement speed, that is due to him accelerating and building up speed as he travels, and he had only moved like 2 steps when Kakuzu intercepted him. It's also important to note that Kakashi also landed a much more successful sneak attack on Kakuzu, using his lightning blade literally right before this, taking out one of his hearts in the process. It's also not very consistent to say Kakuzu is superior to Kakashi, even if you ignore the anime where they swapped hands, in light of Kakashi's performance as the fight continued. Even after spending a lot of chakra using multiple lightning blades, Kakashi was able to counter Kakuzu's ninjutsu on multiple occasions, like when he negated his lightning style False Darkness with 2 lightning blades, or when he blocked his wind enhanced fire style using just his water style. Kakashi was also the first opponent to survive Hidan and Kakuzu's combo onslaught, and while he struggled to do so, this should still make it questionable if Kakuzu could even defeat Kakashi by himself. Kakashi's raw power with his lightning blades was also impressive here, with him dealing the final death blow to Kakuzu after already destroying one of his hearts earlier in the fight. Kakashi being this strong in terms of raw power is also fairly consistent, seeing as he was implied to be around the same level as Naruto, who defeated Kakuzu in this area. Clashing Rasengans with him before this, being uncertain who was stronger between himself and Naruto after watching him defeat Kakuzu, all of it alludes to the fact that Kakashi is probably around Naruto's level. Kakashi also uses after the fight that he could have defeated Kakuzu with Kamui if he needed to, and that he wasn't even forced to use it. So the main point here is while Kakuzu displayed a lot of skill in his battles with Naruto, Kakashi, and Team Asuma, he ultimately wasn't much more powerful than Kakashi and Naruto at that point. With that out of the way, let's talk about Kakuzu's abilities and how they could help him in this fight. While Kakuzu's raw strength may not be that impressive, his ability to use all 5 chakra natures simultaneously on top of his quote-unquote immortality could be pretty irritating for Jiraiya in this fight. Like I said earlier, Kakuzu was the first character we ever saw with the ability to use all 5 chakra natures. However, he does so through his forbidden technique, which lets him steal and manipulate the hearts of his enemies. Once they're incorporated into his yarn and given a mask, they can fight independently of Kakuzu and assist him in battle. However, since these techniques weren't even strong enough to overwhelm Kakashi, they won't be any more successful here. Kakuzu can also use his yarn to heal injuries and fight in weird ways, and has other strong techniques like Diamond Morph, which drastically increases his durability. However, since both of these abilities fell victim to Kakashi's lightning blade, they really wouldn't do any better against a Rasengan from Jiraiya. Not saying that Jiraiya's Rasengan should just be able to eat through Diamond Morph no matter what, but since the databook says that Kakuzu can't move the hardened body part, he could put it all over his body, sure, but in the end, he'd have to take it off in order to attack Jiraiya at some point. So with Kakuzu's strength and comparatively minuscule arsenal out the way, we can talk about how strong Jiraiya is and how his abilities would work here by comparison.
Alright, so before we get to Jiraiya, I want to steal Man 6's argument and say that what 6 basically did is establish a level of arbitrary relativity between Kakashi, Naruto, and Kakuzu. He debunked this terrible argument that Kakuzu is somehow relative in speed to Casey and Naruto simply because he reacted to a much slower Yugito in comparison to the Yugito that fought KCM1 Naruto during the war arc, right? That's just completely disingenuous, completely dishonest, and Six provided the perfect observations and empirical pieces of evidence to make that dishonest point mute and void, right? So that gets that out of the way. Kakuzu is not that speed, and that could also just simply be countered and debunked by the very fact that he got blitzed by a much slower Rasen Shuriken Naruto. That is relative to base Sharingan Kakashi, who didn't even have to utilize his Mangekyo Sharingan, right? So the whole speed argument of Kakuzu is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know why people still continue to utilize that. It's a very, very dishonest argument when there's clearly contradictions to that very argument from the canonical literature itself, establishing that Kakuzu is not at that speed. His very defeat proves and contradicts that very argument, yet people still utilize it as if it works somehow. That's absolutely preposterous and absolutely hilarious at the same time. So that gets that out of the way, right? And the very fact that Kakuzu is relative to some arbitrary extent to Naruto and Kakashi as far as combat prowess already makes this matchup very easy to conclude, right? And Six brought up the Diamond Morph durability increase, which is most definitely relevant in this discussion. But again, he can't move if it's all over his body, right? And we still don't know if his Diamond Morph would hold up against a Giant Rasengan from base Jiraiya and especially Sage Mode Jiraiya. Would his Diamond Morph be able to negate the AP of a Giant Rasengan from Jiraiya? We don't know. But either way, even if it could, he would eventually have to not utilize Diamond Morph to attack Jiraiya in the first place, right? And we could safely say this: Sage Mode Jiraiya is most definitely faster than Kakuzu. Kakuzu is relative to, again, base Rasen Shuriken Naruto and base Sharingan Kakashi. So it's very, very unlikely that he's even remotely close in combat speed, reaction speed, etc. to Sage Mode Jiraiya or even base Jiraiya. It's very, very unlikely, and it's dishonest to try to make the argument that he's KCM1 level in speed. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely. But so far, great debunks by Six, and let's continue on with the video.
While there aren't too many ways to directly compare Kakuzu to people like the Sannin, Kakashi and Naruto both serve as good measuring sticks for us to see how Kakuzu would stack up to Jiraiya. While Kakashi did train and develop his skills as a ninja during the time skip, if you've seen my other videos, then you should know that I don't believe he grew much faster or stronger than before until after the later parts of Shippuden.
Right.
This is mainly due to his lack of showings that would suggest a big increase, on top of the fact that his data book stats for speed and strength remain unchanged between the second and third data books.
I agree with that.
Which would suggest he hadn't grown much, if at all, in those specific areas. While databook stats can be iffy when implied in general, they have been used to show increases in progress in the context of individual characters. On top of this, he was also still comparable to Kabuto and Guy at the beginning of Shippuden, so the meta didn't really change over the time skip. This brings us to Jiraiya, who was considered to be a better Hokage candidate than Kakashi before and after the time skip, and this would make Jiraiya stronger than him, since we've been told numerous times that the position of Hokage is only given to the strongest ninja in the village. On top of this, Jiraiya also believes his techniques like the Rasengan are more powerful than Kakashi's techniques like the Lightning Blade and the Chidori. It's also pretty consistent for Kakashi to be weaker than the Sannin at this point, since we literally saw he stood no chance against Orochimaru, who was said many times to be a stronger criminal than Kakuzu and a rival for base Jiraiya and Tsunade.
Agreed.
So even in base, Jiraiya should be clearly superior to Kakashi, who was pressing Kakuzu, and he should be more than capable of taking down his hearts with his Rasengan, just like how Kakashi did with his Lightning Blade if it comes down to it. It's also fairly easy to use Naruto's performance against Kakuzu to say Jiraiya could also defeat him, since it would be fairly obvious that, like Kakashi, Naruto was just not on Jiraiya's level by this point.
Agreed.
Seeing as that was one of the big reasons he wanted to learn Sage Mode, that was
to close that gap.
Jiraiya.
Yep.
The canonicity here is questionable. However, in the story mode of Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm Generations, Naruto was unable to do a thing to base Jiraiya even after completing the Rasen Shuriken and defeating Kakuzu, which would be a pretty cut and dry way to say base Jiraiya would handle Kakuzu. However, like I said, the canonicity when it comes to these games and the manga is questionable, since they specified the anime in the infamous interview where CyberConnect 2 said the story made for generations was quote-unquote canon. So take that as you will. So now that we've established that even in base, Jiraiya would be too much for Kakuzu to handle, let's talk about his huge arsenal and some of the stuff he could use to deal with Kakuzu here. Like Kakuzu, Jiraiya also displays a lot of mastery with elemental ninjutsu, on top of other techniques like the summoning jutsu, and even more powerful techniques he learned from the toads of Mount Myoboku, like Sage Mode of course, which he can use to quickly and easily overwhelm Kakuzu in a fight. While Jiraiya can't use all 5 elements like Kakuzu, with the 4th data book stating he's only capable of using fire, earth, wind, and water style, Jiraiya does have more than enough to work with to deal with Kakuzu's techniques. For one, Jiraiya is very adept in the use of fire style and has many powerful techniques he can use to blow Kakuzu and his wind, earth, lightning, and even fire heart.
So before we continue on to Jiraiya's fire style, I want to steel man 6's argument again and add this to further reinforce the premise that Kakashi and Naruto during the Kakuzu fight are inferior to Jiraiya. Naruto admits blatant inferiority to Sasuke, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, at least in the anime itself, after defeating Kakuzu. He still says, I haven't caught up to the guy, right? He blatantly states that. Kakashi says, you're relative to myself, you might have surpassed myself later on as well, right? And as we all know, Sasuke, before the Orochimaru absorption, definitely wasn't Orochimaru level. The only reason he was able to absorb Orochimaru was because Orochimaru was already on his deathbed, and still barely managed to absorb Orochimaru. Hence, if Sasuke is below Orochimaru, and Naruto is below Sasuke, then clearly Jiraiya is above Naruto and Kakashi as a result of that, right? Transitively, the chain connects. The chain will link up in that fashion, with Jiraiya at the top, deathbed Orochimaru right there, Sasuke around that level, Naruto below that, and Kakashi around his level, right? So clearly, Jiraiya is just, I would say, significantly above Naruto and Kakashi at this point, with, again, us previously establishing some arbitrary level of relativity between Kakashi and Naruto and Kakuzu during their battle, right? So there's just plenty of canonical literature and even questionably canonical literature, such as the video game which Six referenced, that establishes this obvious chain of power between Kakuzu, Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Naruto. It's clear as day. And when trying to argue against it, you're arguing against the very empirical evidence presented in your face, right? So you're using less reliable strategies of logic to establish your dishonest argument. You're trying to make the argument that Kakuzu is faster than Keisumo and Naruto. That's dishonest, and it goes against the very narrative being told to us directly with the canonical literature presented. It's extremely disingenuous, it's extremely dishonest, and it's comical. It's comical to try to make this claim. Some people stand by it and consider it absolute or damn near absolute and revere their extremely shaky and unreliable claim, which is that Kakuzu is above Keisumo and Naruto somehow. It's extremely disingenuous, extremely. But again, there's plenty of canonical empirical pieces of evidence to suggest Jiraiya is above Kakashi and Naruto during the Kakuzu fight. There's plenty. Let's continue on though.
Away, since he's stronger than Kakashi, who had no trouble keeping up with Kakuzu's ninjutsu. This includes techniques like his flame bombs, which he often enhances using toad oil, which he can also use separately to slow down his targets or immobilize them before he blasts them with his fire style. While cornering all of Kakuzu's hearts individually could be tedious and time consuming normally, Jiraiya can easily overwhelm and balance out the numbers with the many toads he can summon from Mount Myoboku like Gamaken, Gamahiro, or Gamabunta, which he can perform even larger scale collaborative techniques with, like their toad oil flame bullet.
Correct.
Which, to be honest, if you look at the size, I don't know how Kakuzu would even survive one of these. On top of his fire style, Jiraiya also has many powerful earth style techniques he can use, like his dark swamp, which he can use to immobilize Kakuzu, or his hearts and turn them into like sitting ducks. Like Naruto, Minato, and Kakashi, Jiraiya can also use the Rasengan, one of the most powerful techniques ever created according to the 4th data book. And since, like I said before, we're told this is much more powerful than Kakashi's lightning blade, he wouldn't have any problems using it to put down Kakuzu, even if he tries hiding behind his diamond armor for the reasons I mentioned earlier. Now this is also some gray area, but if you've been around the fandom long enough to play the video games, then you probably know Jiraiya has an infamous fire style or Great Flame Rasengan that has not been referenced a single time within the manga or anime. However, we do get a picture of it on Jiraiya's page in the guide we got for the manga's 10-year anniversary. So this is something he could arguably actually use in a fight. And if Naruto's Rasen Shuriken is any clue, this would be way beyond even Jiraiya's regular Rasengan, so Kakuzu wouldn't stand a chance against it if you think making a flaming Rasengan is something he can actually do. Jiraiya also boasts a lot of other versatile techniques like his Lion's Mane, Sealing Jutsu, Transformation Jutsu, and other powerful techniques. However, since there are so many, it would just be overkill to go over all of them here. But one that would make this fight an utter stomp in Jiraiya's favor is his ability to summon Ma and Pa and use Sage Mode.
Of course.
While Jiraiya doesn't have a quote-unquote perfect Sage Mode that he can use by himself like Naruto and Minato, he can enter Sage Mode with the help of Ma and Pa, the two great Toad Sages he summons and has sit on top of his shoulders. Like other sages, Jiraiya becomes much faster and stronger in this form according to Pa and the data books, by taking in nature energy in order to mold Sage Chakra, which in turn also makes his techniques much stronger than before. While his fire style and base was already powerful enough to blow away Kakuzu in any of his techniques, it just becomes overkill in Sage Mode, with the third data book noting that his flame bombs grew 10 times bigger. His Rasengan also becomes much more powerful with him being able to use the massive Rasengan, which the third data book says he can use to easily carve away mountains. His basic abilities like his Taijutsu and Lion's Mane technique also become a lot more dangerous with attacks like the Kabari Senbon, which simultaneously boast the highest speed and range out of all of Jiraiya's techniques.
Correct. Yep.
Meaning there is absolutely no way Kakuzu or any of his hearts would be able to dodge. Ma and Pa also work great at supporting Jiraiya, with them being able to perform many powerful collaborative techniques with him, like the Bath of Boiling Oil, which can reach temperatures of several thousand degrees, or the Toad Song, a powerful genjutsu, which is even
another way he could
capable
take
of stopping
Kakuzu
pain
out
for a little while. Ma and Pa also have techniques of their own which they can use, like Ma's tongue, which she can use to track and immobilize targets before Pa blast right through them with high pressure water style. So basically, I mean, you get the picture. Like I said, when Jiraiya enters Sage Mode, this fight becomes even more of a complete stomp.
Absolutely.
I only mentioned it to make this video a bit more informative for everyone. So like I said from the start, despite what some people may say, I think this is an easy Jiraiya W. He's just, put simply,
of course,
on another level compared to people like Kakashi and Rasen Shuriken Naruto, who showed time and time again they had what it took to compete with and defeat Kakuzu. On top of the fact he has more than enough in his arsenal to deal with him, whether it's fire style or Rasengans. And once you add Sage Mode into it, and all the crazy abilities he used against pain like Toad Song on top of this, it just becomes unfair and impossible to say Kakuzu would do anything here.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's it for the video. Obviously, leave a like on it if you liked it. And
good video as always.
I have
good
more
scaling.
versus battles on my channel. Plenty you can check out after this video. And, you know, have a nice day.
Alright, there you guys have it. Now to give my thoughts on the video, great video by 6 as always. Of course, just restating what most people with any kind of awareness in the fandom already know, Jiraiya stomps Kakuzu. And not only does he stomp him, but he could stomp him in many ways. He could use Genjutsu and Sage Mode with Ma and Pa. You could absolutely obliterate him with a Master Rasengan. You could absolutely obliterate him with one of the collaborative jutsus that he utilizes with his toads, etc. There's many ways that he could destroy Kakuzu. With Sage Mode, he would blitz Kakuzu and choose what he wants to do with him. It's pick your poison day for a Jiraiya. He can literally select what tool he wants to utilize to kill Kakuzu. That's how much more superior he is than Kakuzu. There would be no competition there. He is significantly superior to Kakuzu, who's just an arbitrary extent relative to Naruto and Kakashi, based off their very encounter that they had during their fight, respectively. So it's not even close, right? And the whole entertainment gag that we get with Kakuzu and his scaling is just comical to me. And I'm sure it is 6 as well, clearly from the video. It's comical, it's entertaining, but at the end of the day, when you get down to the X's and O's, Kakuzu does not scale to even Sannin level, let alone KCM1 Naruto, which is absolutely preposterous to even suggest. It's absolutely comical to suggest. the canonical literature presented to us clearly indicates Kakuzu is just not on that level. The narrative in general displays antagonists increasingly becoming more and more powerful for the most part, besides like Orochimaru, who was pretty powerful and contented up until the war arc once we got to, Obito with Rinnegan and things like that, right? So for the most part, we're seeing an upward trend in caliber of antagonists up until the war arc and end of Shippuden, right? The antagonists get more and more powerful. So why would Kakuzu from early Shippuden or middle Shippuden already be a Casey One Naruto? It's just another narrative argument you can make. And again, to make it even more concrete, use the literal empirical evidence provided for Kakuzu, for Jiraiya, for Kakashi, and for Naruto when creating that chaining scale for all those individuals based off what we see. Right? It's not even close. Kakuzu would most likely even lose to Mangekyo Sharingan Kakashi, let alone Stage Mode Jiraiya. So it's pretty clear, folks, and I'm sure for most of you guys it already was pretty clear who the winner in this is. I still don't understand the actual revealment of Kakuzu. I honestly don't. Right, the actual revealment where he's at this absurd level when clearly he's not, and it's clearly blatant by the actual canonical literature, despite your own bias and subjective lens. I don't understand it. And to this day, I've seen individuals that truly think Kakuzu could defeat some pretty powerful individuals that are signing level or even beyond that. It's truly comical. It's truly comical, but here we are, and that's the fandom. There will always be trolls, there will always be ignorance, lack of awareness, bias, etc. Just one of the many logical fallacies that we see in any field of discipline, not just anime. So folks, there you guys have it. That's my thoughts on the video. I think Six did a very good job debunking the obvious, right? It's unfortunate that we even have to debunk the obvious, but unfortunately, the Kakuzu overestimation still runs rampant in the community. So I'm glad Six made this video. It was very well done. But it's going to wrap it up, folks. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm sure there's some Kakuzu fans out there that are absolutely just disgusted by this video, disgusted by myself and my own thoughts. So even if you're one of those individuals, please feel free to leave your comments down below. I do read them all, whether negative, positive, neutral, etc. But it's going to wrap it up, folks, and I'll catch you in the next one. This is Jiraiya signing out. Peace.